This is the safest wilderness shelter I've ever seen. Suspended 3 meters above the ground with pulleys and ropes, this off-the-ground design not only protects against wild animal attacks, but also insulates perfectly from the cold ground. With a nearby stream teeming with fish, Awei could theoretically live here forever. More than 2 months have passed since winter gave way to spring. Today, we reunite with our old friend Awei. Despite a recent failed blind date, he remains convinced that life in the wild is the most comfortable. While trekking through the forest, he stumbles upon fresh animal droppings. Taking this as a sign of danger, he immediately decides that an elevated shelter is the safest option. Without hesitation, Awei draws his knife and begins gathering construction materials. Fortunately, this forest is rich in wood resources. In no time, he's amassed a large pile of branches. But before construction can begin, he tests their flexibility, an essential yet risky step. A single misstep could cause a structural collapse later on. Due to the limited length of the branches, Awei binds 2 together, alternating thick and thin pieces, to form a circular frame. He secures the outer rim with more branches, tying everything tightly with hemp rope. His precision and skill suggest he might have built 1,000 shelters before. With the frame resembling the head of a missile, Awei reinforces the structure by adding circular supports at the middle and top. However, the frame alone isn't enough. He needs lightweight, flexible materials for the walls. That's when he spots some familiar materials, reed stalks and palm fronds. Though fragile, they've been trusted tools and materials in his past wilderness adventures. Awei bundles the reeds and fronds, measuring and cutting them to the same length. He covers the frame with these natural panels, forming the outer shell of the shelter. Climbing inside to test it, he notices the structure is top-heavy and wobbly. Without wasting time, he crossweaves additional reeds in the opposite direction. This not only stabilizes the structure, but also makes it windproof and improves insulation. As the final layer is secured, it begins to rain. Awei takes a short rest under the tree, listening to the rhythmic patter of raindrops. When the rain clears, he resumes work. Using the remaining reeds, he wraps the entrance of the shelter and trims any excess for a neat finish. Awei had already chosen a sturdy tree as the hanging point when he arrived. Now it's time for the most challenging part, hoisting the shelter into the air. Thankfully, he brought pulleys and ropes, otherwise this would be nearly impossible. He fixes the pulley system to the shelter and secures 2 pulleys to thick branches overhead. The tree's strength can easily support the load, but the real challenge is climbing up and down repeatedly. After attaching the ropes, he realizes pulling the shelter up by hand is impractical. Awei quickly improvises. He sharpens several logs and drives them into the ground to form a stable frame next to the tree. He lays a notched branch horizontally, creating a rotating winch. With the rope wrapped around it, he can now hoist the shelter gradually by turning the log, saving both effort and time. After a series of careful adjustments, the shelter is suspended securely 3 meters above the ground. This height offers complete protection from wild animals and keeps him above the cold forest floor. Feeling reassured, Awei collects hay to line the interior, enhancing comfort and insulation. Even the small gaps around the edges are packed with hay, evidence of his meticulous nature. The final touch is the door. Using a smaller circular frame and reeds, he crafts a snug-fitting door that slots perfectly into the entrance. With that, the suspended shelter is complete. After a hard day's work, it's time for a well-earned meal. Awei carves a simple spear from a sturdy stick and heads to the nearby stream. Though his catch is modest, just 2 fish, it's more than enough. As night falls, he kindles a bonfire in the clearing. The fish, seasoned with his secret spices, slowly roasts over the flames. Meanwhile, Awei kneads flour into dough, shaping it into flatbreads, which he cooks alongside the fish. He also prepares a variety of wild greens he gathered earlier. Together, the grilled fish, fresh bread, and vegetables form a 5-star outdoor feast. After the satisfying meal, Awei gathers his belongings, climbs into his elevated shelter, and seals the door tightly. Suspended safely above the forest floor, he drifts into a peaceful sleep.